Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you again to another How to Divorce a Narcissist. My name is Marjorie Phoenix. I'm going to fix this here. And I'm the author of the book, Who the Hell Do You Think You Are? It's a memoir. It chronicles a very traumatic divorce. And today we're going to cover a subject that's very sensitive. This gathering is really just an opportunity for us to be able to educate and bring awareness to women out there who are in abusive relationships, and the abuse is coming from someone who might have some sort of a personality disorder. And today the discussion is really around narcissism. I've discovered over the past year or so that more and more of the behaviors that I had experienced with my ex, and as I hear other women talk about their experiences, is that there is a part of a narcissist personality that he had. And so as I'm learning all of this and I'm seeing how it's really connected to a lot of psychological, financial abuse, and can even go into physical abuse, I realized that I wanted to make this a part of the conversation as well. One was going through a breakup with this person. And we're going to share with you a little bit today. I'm going to share my story. I have my guest on, Amy. She's going to share her story. We're going to talk about some of the mistakes that we've made and some of the lessons that we've learned. And then we're going to share with some things that you should be aware of as you are going through the process of this breakup or divorce with a narcissist. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of this type of person. Let me first say before we start that this is not legal advice. We're coming from a place of experience, talking about the narcissistic personality. We want you to be able to take this information and use your sound judgment, smart judgment in dealing with the person in your relationship. You know him better than we do, or you know her better than we do. So you will know how to take some information, how to structure it and use this as you're going through your process of divorce. Really, all this is we're hoping that we can just educate you so we can prevent some of the things that happen to us, prevent that from happening to you. And that's really why I've put these Google Hangouts together every month, once a month, inviting on and having a really good discussion about this so that there's something you can take away with it. I say this quote almost every month because I love it. It's Maya Angelou, and she says, once you know better, you do better. And I truly do believe that. So the more information you have, the more empowered you feel. And you feel like you can. So, so we're going to go through this tonight. It's going to be really laid back and casual. I'm going to read an excerpt from my book. I'll have Amy share some of her experiences, and we're just going to go back and forth with all of this. So, so before we get started with my reading, I would like to welcome Amy on an author's reading and discussion, and thank her for coming on. And Amy, would you just introduce yourself to the viewers?
I am 1 year out from my divorce from my abusive ex-spouse, narcissist. And I have a YouTube channel where I just sort of started giving some of my little stories in a video format of what that was like. And I'm a full-time teacher, and I have a 4-year-old son with my ex-husband. And yeah, I've read Marjorie's book, and I think it's inspirational, the courage that it took for her to go through what she went through. So I'm just happy to be here and be part of the dialogue.
Great, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you could be here with us tonight. This isn't just an opportunity. So many women as you know, Amy, that are having these types of experiences. Some of them don't even realize. But I'd say I watched your videos, and I want to give a quick shout out to Narcissist Free on YouTube videos. It's through watching your videos and her videos. I was just having these eye-opening experiences and realizing, oh my gosh, I went through that. You know, there were many times that I listened to some of your stories and your experiences, and I found myself crying because I was sad because I did not know what I was dealing with. I had no idea. And there were some things that, not just in my marriage, but before the marriage, that was there that I had no clue what this. We could help some women right now through a very painful, I mean, divorce is painful enough. You've got to be prepared. And one of the things that I just really am devoted to is the healing process for women when they go through this, because we lose our sense of self, we lose our self-identity,
Yes.
we ourselves again after this, and there's just so much to deal with. So so this is a small part of that. If we can get you empowered through that process, you know, that's going to be so helpful for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and just read a little excerpt from chapter 4. And just to set the scene, this is in court. After I've been arrested, I was jailed for 24 hours, came out, left homeless and penniless to find that my ex-husband had closed all the bank accounts, filed a restraining order, and was kept from my 6-year-old little girl. So this is our first, which I was not prepared for. This is totally unexpected. Within the next few days, I'm standing in a hallway full of people at the county courthouse. I'm huddled in a corner with my oldest daughter, girlfriend, and attorney. When I turn to look out the window and see my husband, an attorney, I'm seized by an anxiety attack and become emotional. My girlfriend grabs hold of me. Don't you dare let him see you crying. Snap out of it, pull it together. You can do this. I do not feel well put together right now. I'm wearing a pair of baggy brown slacks with a white blouse and an oversized polyester blazer someone gave me. My hair is pulled back in a ponytail and I have no makeup on. I feel and look a mess. I keep my back turned to them until the doors open and we're allowed into the courtroom. With a second case called, both sides give their account of the event. Then photos of bruises on my husband's arms, along with photos of all the torn wedding pictures scattered on the floor, are presented. I'm sucker punched. Where did these bruises come from? Why are pictures scattered on the floor when I had thrown them in the trash? And most importantly, after the police had left. If I had harmed him, why did he refuse medical attention or not show the marks to the officers? These have got to be self-inflicted wounds. He has this look on his face like, really? You want me to say that? He's right. Unbelievable. I sit back and listen as the two attorneys go back and forth. My mental and emotional instability is brought up, and how I suffered from anxiety attacks needing medication. What wasn't told was that it was in my 20s before my first child was born in our marriage. I had not experienced an attack for over 20 years until the day of this incident. There's also the fact that I occasionally enjoy a glass of wine or two. So now I'm an alcoholic. The most grotesque accusation is that I harmed my child during our argument at the house that morning. It is implied that I'm a danger to her, and they're asking for supervised visitations. Right away, my attorney called my oldest daughter to the stand to have her refute the claims, since my youngest was in her presence during the entire episode. Never in my life have I felt so attacked. The personal challenge I shared with my spouse during the course of our marriage, along with the intimate talks we've had together over drinks in the privacy of our home, are being used against me. I'm shocked when the judge rules that there will be a 1-year restraining order in place, keeping me 500 feet away from my husband and home. Our communication pertaining to our child will be via Family Wizard, a court order. The humiliation doesn't stop there. I'm also ordered to undergo a substance abuse and mental health evaluation. The judge did, however, grant me access into the home today to gather all my belongings and retrieve the family car for my use. As grateful as I am for that, the only real blessing that came out of today is as of next week, I will see my child after 30 days apart. It is decided that our time together will be one evening a week and every other weekend. I've now gone from being a full-time mother to barely a part-time mother. I walk out of the courtroom feeling like I just have been stripped naked, just like I did the day at my daughter's school. That totally unexpected. I would never have imagined, just like I never would have imagined that he had me arrested. Like I never would have imagined that he would have closed all the bank accounts and left me out there. I never would have imagined that he would have gone this far. Amy, I know your situation probably was not this drastic, but were there any unexpected things that came up also for you during your divorce?
Yes, definitely. He is the king of the curveball, and it's similar to, actually, he looked for opportunities to push my buttons to get me to lash. He did this before we were divorced and after we were divorced. And it was almost, you know, they call it gaslighting. But the one thing that got me was whenever he would hold our baby, not let me have access to the baby when we were, you know, born. So he had some issues. And so if I could not comfort him when he was crying and sick, he would quickly make me snap, you know, like Mama Bear needs to get her at 6. Okay. So I could not get to my child physically, and he would pull him away from me and not comfort him. And boy, that was the quickest way to get me just to go. That he had called the police on me that one particular night like that, where I had thrown a pacifier in his direction, and I hit him on the back of his shoulder blade, and he said, with a pacifier, and it was when he was keeping my son from me. And I was just so mad, and I knew I couldn't say anything because I learned quickly with these narcissists that you're never going to achieve anything verbally or rationally. It's pointless. And so just out of sheer frustration, I flung the pacifier at him, hit him back there on the back, not hard. And he said, "I'm going to call the cops on you. That's physical abuse." You know, I was like, "Oh, you're kidding." And this was in the middle of the night. And then he came back and he said, "You better put some clothes," you know, I had my nightgown on. He said, "You better put something on because the cops are on their way." So I quickly called my parents and woke them up, and I said, "You've got to get over here quick. You know, so-and-so has just called the police and is going to have me arrested because I threw a pacifier." Dad laughed. You know, "What? That's nonsense." And it is, it's absurd. And I truly believed that he had done that. And so my parents drove across town and got to my house, and I was changing my clothes and like crying my eyes out. And he was loving it, you know, loving it. And I still would not let me home, about to get arrested. He, once he saw my parents come over there, he said, he admitted that he didn't really call the police.
All of it was to scare you.
Yes. And I believe to try to get me to be more physically violent, to just try to keep amping me up so that, like in your situation, you were not, I mean, clearly not abusing your husband. Or, you know, I think we were both set up in that sense. You far more than me, because your ex actually did that, you know. And then
you bait you and you bite it. That's all they want. That's what they relish in that.
So I can totally relate to that excerpt you just read there. Of course, my story did not go off on a terrible trajectory like yours did, but the similar to a certain degree. These are people that just, they share so many characteristics that they almost become cartoonish in their.
Most definitely. And that's one thing I wanted to say, is that they have the same playbook. So because we can prepare ourselves for what's ahead. And I call this being smart. You don't have to be defensive, but you have to get on the offensive. And so because they have the same, what to expect, then you will be better prepared for whatever is going to happen. Now, you mentioned a couple of things. They will bait you. There are these things that they do. They're not rational. You can't really have a rational conversation, and you're never going to be right. Never the argument. It's just like talking to a brick wall.
It is.
So yeah, and they have this sense of entitlement. They're all about self-image. It's about how they look, even with going as far as saying, having your wife arrested, doing what you're doing, going through all this drama that, well, he's all about self-image. There's no way he's going to want this to go out into the public, because we've been entertaining people at our home, and his career and all of this stuff. But what happens is now they take on this role of the victim. And so it's about, they are now going out and telling this story to everyone about what you've done to them, the whole. I would say one would be, don't hide this from what's going on and how you feel, even if you're confused, because a lot of times with this type of psychological abuse, we're a bit confused. We're not sure. It's not something that happens every day. It happens in spurts. So we're sort of doubting. And if they're looking to and telling us, laughing at us, oh, you're just crazy, you're just, whatever, we start to doubt ourselves if we really feel or know what we know. But I would say talk to others about it and put it out there, even if they may not fully understand what's going on. You start telling your parents or the people closest to you. Document everything. Write it in a journal. Because they're going to try to make you feel crazy, and you're going to want this, or you're going to need this somewhere down the line. So document, start journaling every night, or emails or text messages, anything like that. Go see an attorney, but interview attorneys. I would definitely recommend this. One of the things that I did was I did see an attorney. I just went to him like, I'm just looking for a divorce. And announced to me, he was tracking my phone calls on my cell phone, and any strange number would call them. And that's how he found out that I saw an attorney and found out that I had an appointment. And so if you're going to do that, be very careful about doing that and how you do that. But also conflict divorce, you know who you're dealing with, and just make sure the attorney understands these situations. They've had cases like this before in the past, so that they can well, and just get yourself sort of prepared. They're going to prepare you on the legal end to tell you, like I wish someone had told me, until the divorce was done, shut down your Twitter or your Facebook. I mean, there's a lot you can do with Facebook, but like with Twitter or some of the other ones, you might not be able to protect, shut it down, or privatize it, sort of thing.
Yes, I think that what you said about the note taking, the way I would do it is on my phone. I have an iPhone, and if anybody has apps, but just the basic, I would just, because it would put a date and timestamp on it automatically whenever you create a note in it. And I would just type up real quickly what happened whenever he would go into a rage, or there was something that I could really use later, not just in a legal sense, but also to remind myself of what the abuse felt like and looked like and what he did, because you tend to get, like you say, confused. And my notes and emailed them to myself at work And I'm not recommending anybody use their work email for personal business, but I felt like it was my only option. And I then printed them out right in my journal. But I would keep those things under the floorboard of my car in the back seat. You know, like I tucked them in between the mat. I knew he would never find just out in my car. I could have it when I was at work. Definitely was very helpful with that. And then having my hiding place for it. Because as you say, they're very sneaky and they don't have boundaries. So your phone, in your case, was also his phone and it was all his business and perfectly fine for him to just snoop around and do what he needed to do. With my narcissist, he had no boundaries, everything, you know, it's the entitlement issues. So I really did need to sort of sneak around and hide what I was doing. And one note I had made to myself was that you don't want to, in the heat of an argument, tell your narcissist, you know, like, I just saw a lawyer today anyway, so this is all about to be over. And, you know, you want to spit it out, especially when they're pushing your buttons and doing the narc thing. But it's best if you can just keep that to yourself and don't let them, you know, I guess make you feel so angry that you let it out. Things will go a lot better if it's, at least in my experience, if it's done in secret, because that gives them time to plan and a bit off guard. And I did mine during a time of a good period, you know, in the cycle of abuse. I didn't do it during the abuse period, but I did it during a good time. And, you know, there are a lot of like physical things that I wrote down that, you know, I think people should do, and they're typical. I think most people that get divorced know that you should consider the bank accounts and the credit cards that you share with that person and take care of those. Where are you going to have your person served? Is he going to be, or she be, a threat to you physically once they've been served? In my case, my lawyer suggested to me to get what is called an ex parte hearing, and is to grant me temporary sole custody, sole residency of the marital home, and that way I would be more in a protected state, as opposed to him getting served the papers and I still have to live under the same roof with him. So he did contest that, and we did have an ex parte hearing and submit more reasons why I felt he was a physical threat and that he was stable and stuff like that. It allowed for me to also get pushed up on the docket for the preliminary hearing, you know, just not the divorce proceedings, but the preliminary hearing. Where I live, in the particular judges in our area, the judge that I had, when she gets those ex parte situations where there's some danger, you know, alleged danger, one of the kind of bumped up in the process.
Okay, your situation and knew.
Yes.
It helps you feel a little bit safer when you have that, when you have an attorney. You know, my attorney, bless his heart. I mean, my attorney pro bono for you. So, you know, he got into this not even realizing that it was going to drag out the way that it did, not realizing what he was, neither one of us knew what we were dealing with, to be honest with you. I really wasn't in a position then when I came to him to be interviewing. You know, this was about, I had to deal with now a charge, a misdemeanor charge. So, you know, and you have this injunction and, you know, all of this stuff. So while we're doing that, I'm still being victimized via email, threats, you know, that sort of thing. I'm dealing with all of this emotional stuff, trying to survive. I mean, it's literally, it's enough to send you crazy, which is kind of attorney for that situation. Even though we documented, I documented everything, all the emails he sent me. We never really used them in court. There's so much that I've learned now, and that's why these discussions are so important, because I don't want to see another woman end up and have to go through what I went through. And I was not a working mom. I was a stay-at-home mom. So, and I had been moved from, my mother had always said in the beginning, when we moved from Atlanta and we moved here, it was like, he just took you away from all your family in the middle of nowhere. When we moved, I had to Google what this place was and, you know, had no idea. So, you know, I moved away from no one. And, you know, leaving that jail that day, I'm pretty much on my own. So there's so much more to that story. But at any rate, you know, and like you said, telling them ahead of time that you're going to do this, I think that, you know, we could be adults about this. And I made it clear I didn't want the house. I'm not going to try to keep you from your child. We can do this. Let me till after the holidays, because this was in November. So let's wait till after the holidays. We don't want to do anything, you know, with the girls right now. And I fell for that. And I fell for the bait. And, you know, he used to tell me a lot that I'm naive. He told me that a lot. And you know what? He was right. I was naive about him, love, and, you know, what I was, you know, my situation right then. So don't be naive. So here is some of the things that you need to be aware of so that you don't get hit with the unexpected. Expect that you're going to be blamed. You are the bad guy. I don't care. I mean, you could be school teacher. You could be, you know, volunteering all over the place at church, here, there, everywhere. You know, you're doing everything for your family. You're going to be blamed. You're the bad guy. You're going to probably be accused of some of the most, you know, grotesque and just worst things that you even imagine. I would have never imagined that it would be alleged that I harmed my daughter. I mean, I felt like that was just the bottom. And then for them to use the children against you. As much as you hear this, even in divorces that aren't as high conflict as this, you hear them say, do not use. Exactly what they use. And because they know they can almost get you to do anything if they dangle that child in front of you. And so that's going to happen. And don't be reasonable. At the point when they come with the guns blazing, you have got to have yours ready. And so it's with this information, and it's with knowing what you will or will not stand for anymore, and putting up your gates and saying, this is it, this is where I'm standing. And you've got to be solid in that, and you've really got to believe in yourself that you can stand up to this and you're going to be able to do this. Because a lot of times as they're coming at you, they're coming with all their games and their tricks and their manipulations and the fear of God and everything. You're going to be thinking, I can't do, I just want this to be over. I've heard so many women say this, I just want it to be over. I can't deal with it. And that's exactly what they're counting on. You see, they know you the same way you know them. They know your weakness thing. You have got to be able to use that same weakness that they claim to know about you, use theirs against them. You know, as them being a narcissist, you know, it's all about self, it's all about them looking good, and to be the one to always stand up and don't stroke it. It's not more. You're standing up for yourself, and you're shaking your head, Amy, so you know. This information, knowing this, and then knowing the way they are, that's going to help you be better. And you can use this by informing your attorney and saying, let me tell you about this person. Let me tell you, this is what he or she is probably going to say. So if they do this, and see, we're not expecting this. I'm not expecting for the things that I trust when I said to my husband, pillow talk or any other talk or mistakes that I made, I'm not expecting him to ever go into the court of law and use that against me to destroy me. You don't expect that. So you've got to think about all of that. What have they done so far, for a fact? What are they capable of doing? And then even go a step further. What is the thing you wouldn't even imagine that they would do? And just be prepared for all of that.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Amy?
About or would have even conceived as ammunition, but they're constantly looking for some way to tear their supply or their victims down, you know. And so the same thing with my guy, he even if it was something good, around so that you end up looking bad, which they feel makes them look good. Makes them look more credible, or if it's just, you know, to the public looking new. And I realized far too late in the marriage that I shouldn't be sharing personal, private stuff with him. Expect our spouses, our partners, to be able to be there for us and to share in our hopes and dreams, and to share in, you know, maybe you know, some of our embarrassments, and that you can trust that person with vulnerabilities. And absolutely cannot do that. And it was so sad because there would be things that I was excited about or things that had upset me. I had for my own sake, as it would end up heaping more pain and more verbal and emotional abuse on me later whenever they decided to pull that out of their Rolodex, use it against me.
Month, you know, that, you know, you get married, and for women, it's, you know, you have this sense of security once you get married. Your husband is your pretend. But I can just talk from a woman's perspective, and that, you know, typically that man, he is there to, you want him to protect you and shelter you from all the bad things in the world. And your home is your sphere of security, and that's where you come to every day, and you want to be able to feel safe. And when that that so-called protection turns against you, it can do something to you being able to trust again. Because you think, oh my gosh, if this person I built a life, I had a child with, will do that to me, you know, you just can't imagine opening up. And this is what some of the root causes for women not trusting again, you know, to damages your trust.
Exactly.
Yeah, so a couple of other things with that too. You know, I talked about, you know, he said that I was naive, and that was true. I was definitely naive, but I always remembered him saying, I never knew what gas was. And I think I remember you bringing it up in one of your videos. And then I realized that we would have conversations, and I know he would say something, and I would say that, well, that's what you said. And it was like, no, I didn't say that. And it was always, I had a bad memory. And I started believing that I had a bad memory, that I couldn't remember nothing. That's why the journaling is so important. You're not crazy, that nothing's wrong with you. So as you're going through the divorce process, if you can get to the point of, you know, getting the paper and getting everything in order financially, you know, all of that sort of thing before you leave, as much contact as possible. And for a couple of reasons. One, because with the birth, again, they're going to try to bait you. But the other thing is for your own sound mind, just for your own, and the contact back and forth. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be healthy. And I'm going to read here in a second another excerpt from the book about how I started to deal with that. Because I started to feel so alone, having to deal with the hostility and the attacks via email, that I honestly felt sometimes like I was losing my mind, because a part of me was like, don't don't respond. Don't email back, don't respond. But then the other part of me was like, well, if I don't, this thing is out there and I've got to be able to defend myself, and I've got to be able to say, you know, he's wrong and this sort of thing. But what happened was, as soon as I did that, another email would come back and it would be something else. And I felt like I had to defend that, and we would be back and forth until it would, what he's doing here. He's trying to build this case to show that. So minimize the contact and just jot it down, you know, so just be smart and prepared for everything. I'm going to go in and read a second excerpt from the book. Is there anything that you wanted to say about that, Amy, before I did that?
No, we're good. I'd like to.
Off the floor with a fire in my belly. All of a sudden, I know what I have to do. I decide I will practice self-discipline by looking beyond the words written to hurt me. If there's something in the email that my attorney needs attention to practice self-control, it's not easy. Every time an email shows up in my inbox, I literally become ill. I want to delete it, but it must be read because it may be something important related to my daughter. I'm reminded of Galatians 5:22. Spirit produces the fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It's not easy to fruit on a daily basis when you are constantly under attack. Computer with her end of the year project is wiped clean. There's not even a hard drive left. It's a shell. How much more can I take? I watch my oldest child sift through this assault on my life. She's become a casualty. I put aside my into the solution, giving her no time to think about the problem. I am her mother, and I will lift her up and carry her out of this burning building that is my life. Ultimately, all I want is to have my youngest child back in my life, the way it once was. I don't care from everything as long as I have my child. Of course, my attorney advises against giving up 50%. The burdens I have and am about to carry to find herself falling to pieces. My body is already reflecting the emotional stress with weight loss. But what others can't see is the internal effects it has on me. No one knows how I wrestle to not drink or take anything to numb the pain. I feel isolated with all of my thoughts and feelings engulfing me. The sound of my own voice is playing like a battle of the minds. The only way I will defeat this attack is to mentally prepare myself for the battle. Realization that I had to prepare myself for the long haul with this. And after this divorce was done, this was something that was not just going to end with the divorce, because of course we have a child. So I had to start taking care of myself, because I literally felt like I was losing my mind sometimes. I was alone. You know, I was going through this. My oldest daughter at the time had gone away to college, and now my youngest child was not with me all the time. What I started to do was look at how I can help get myself strong again. And it's about body, mind, and spirit. I had lost close to 50 pounds already, and I wasn't well. And my mind was so cluttered that I felt like I couldn't make a good decision, think things through anymore, because I lived in constant fear. So the first thing I had to do was ground myself. And I grounded myself spiritually. That's where I started. For me, I needed to do that. I needed to go back to my core and my belief. Am I? That's why the title of the book as well, because you lose a sense of yourself as you're going through this. You don't know who you are anymore. So I had to go to the core. Who does God say I am? Who do I believe I am as a child of God? So I had to ground myself in that way. I spent a lot of time reading the Bible. I spent a lot of time reading positive, inspirational books, things that would empower me. I spent time learning my mind through a bit of meditation. And then as I did that, I felt my spirit become stronger. And with that, I said, okay, I'm going to start taking care of my body. My body is a temple. I need to be strong for my children. I need to be strong to get through this. And I started giving my body everything that it needed. I cut out a lot of things because I felt like I needed to be at my peak performance.
Yeah.
I started doing that and developing new habits with my body. And as I did that, my mind became clear a little bit at a time. By the time I went to court, which was a day and a half longer, I'm ready. And my faith is even stronger. So I would recommend for you, as you're preparing with all of this is going to help you feel stronger in the journey that you have ahead. But also feed yourself, body, mind, and spirit, what it needs so that you can go through this. You're mentally strong, you're spiritually strong, and you're physically strong. When we are under a lot of stress with something like this, our immune system breaks down. Things start happening to us and we're not realizing what, but it's because of the stress that our body's taking on. Because you want to make sure and take care of yourself, as well as having the knowledge. So when you have both of those together, you will survive this and you will come out of this. And I'm not saying that everything may turn out the way that you want it to, and you know right.
Yes. It's like a brainwashing that you have to get over, and clearing the cobwebs of that from your mind through prayer, through meditation, what you're talking about, yourself to get back to who you know you are. Because I felt like before I met my narcissist, I was confident. I didn't have it didn't take me much time to make a decision. But those ticked away at, that's one of the things they do to sort of disarm you and keep you in a position of vulnerability. There are many ways that that can isolate you, not just like in your case, isolated from them, and that was premeditated, and the isolation from your own past and sense of self that breaks down your confidence, that you do start to think, well, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I say that. I don't remember saying that. And to get through a divorce from a person who is like this, who is manipulative and but manipulative and charismatic at the same time. So it's really hard to bust thoughts that get thrown into your head. It does take a return to your spirit core, your true self, and oftentimes during divorce, because I question, well, maybe he's not a bad guy, because there would be those good times. I would think of myself as little Amy, like 6-year-old Amy. And wouldn't I want to take care of her? Because at the time I had such low self-esteem for myself that it's almost like it benefited me to step out of myself from the me I was in my childhood. And it's like telling the adult Amy, take care of her. And I could do it. And take care of your son, and there may be people who are leaving who don't have any children. And so in that case, definitely do think of your inner child and protect that inner child, and you will make the right decisions, and you'll be able to stick with it, as difficult as it is.